Hi, I'm Mike Rowan, and this is a brief demo of the Retro Tinker Game Master cartridge, utilizing extended color basic on the Tandy color computer. Now the Game Master card has two main features. The first is the SN76489 sound chip by Texas Instruments. It allows you 3 simultaneous tone channels and a 4th noise channel. Now, I received mine as a kit, and this photo is before I installed the ROM socket. The other feature of the Game Master is the ability to bank switch a 64K ROM in 16K segments. So the circuitry is on board there. You can write to a register to select one of 4 16K segments, so you could have up to 64K of data available for a cartridge game. Now, one of the things I should talk about, I bought this as a kit, and when I assembled it, I plugged it in, and my CoCo came up with a scrambled screen. I was thinking that I had done something stupid. Well, what I did was stupid. John Linville, when I discussed it with him, reminded me that this is a game cartridge, so it's automatically set with the cartridge enable line enabled. So when you plug it in, it expects to, it tries to read from a ROM. And since I didn't have a ROM in mine, of course, it just went bonkers. So what I did was disable that by putting a piece of tape over pin 8. You could also do the same thing by putting it in an MPI if you wanted to, but that's how I did it. So I put a piece of tape over pin 8 on the card, plugged it in, and everything was golden. Now next is a short video of the sound capability in action, and I chose to write this in BASIC for a couple of reasons. I wanted to interactively familiarize myself with the sound chip, and I wanted to see what you could do, what you could achieve in BASIC. Frankly, I was pretty impressed with what I could do from BASIC. I plan to do some machine language stuff in the near future, but after the demo, I'll talk in more detail about the color computer sound multiplexer. Take a look at the demo, and I'll pick it up after that. Now the rest of this video is technical. If you just wanted to hear the demo, you can stop now. You've seen it. What I'm going to talk about now is how to enable sound input from a cartridge. And the most useful resource for me was the Color Computer Technical Reference Manual. And I'm just going to do a walkthrough of how I figured out the addresses and settings that required to get sound heard through the CoCo from the Game Master cartridge. Now here we have a picture that's from page 36 of the Technical Reference Manual. And the Technical Reference Manual is based on the CoCo 1, but the addressing is the same on the CoCo 2 and 3. Page 36 shows what each pin of the cartridge port does. So pin 35 is called, the sound pin is the input. So the Game Master cartridge sends its sound to pin 35 of the CoCo, and that's what gets it routed in to go out through the CoCo to your television or your monitor. Now on page 35 there's a description of the special lines on the cartridge port and a little more detail of the sound pin. It says that this signal is connected directly to the sound multiplexer to allow a sound source in the cartridge. Now we know we've got to go hunting for this sound multiplexer. Page 31 there is a diagram as well as a table and a description of the sound output. And this diagram is actually of that sound multiplexer that the line is connected to. The purpose of the multiplexer is to switch between sound sources and route them to the RF modulator. The sound from your CoCo can then be heard on a television through the RF modulator, or composite mods, you could hear it through your monitor, or in the case of the CoCo 3, you can hear the sound through the audio output jack or through the RGB port as well. The multiplexer has multiple sound sources that act as inputs. You've got a set of control lines to select which source you desire, as well as whether you want the sound enabled or disabled. So let's review the three sound sources that are connected to the multiplexer. The digital to analog converter, or DAC, is how the CoCo creates sound when you use the sound or play commands in BASIC. So whenever you issue one of those commands, this multiplexer gets set so that you can hear the sound. And then we also have the cassette input. So when you use the audio on command in BASIC, this source is enabled and you can hear what's being played through the cassette player or through the ear jack of the cassette cable. And finally, the one we're interested in, cartridge pin 35. So those are the three sound sources that we can select through the multiplexer to determine which one we're going to hear. So how do we tell the CoCo which source to listen to? Well, we need to take a look at the control lines on the multiplexer. The control lines are digital signals. A bit is either a 0 or 1. The sound enable, that line determines whether sound is passed from the multiplexer to the RF modulator. It works kind of like an on-off switch for the sound output. Then we have two select lines, select 1 and select 2. That's a 2-bit value that selects the sound source that you want. And just above this in diagram 31 is a sound selection table that outlines what values to get the desired output. And at the top you can see each control bit that we've discussed, the sound enable line, the select 1 line, and the select 2 line. We're interested in selecting the cartridge as the sound source. So the sound enable line should be set to 1, the select 1 line should be set to 0, and the select 2 should be set to 1. But how and where do you set these bits on the CoCo? Well, you can find the answers by looking for these signals in the memory map, specifically the PIAs. So much of what the CoCo does is connected with the PIAs. So let's start with the sound enable bit. On page 7 of the technical reference manual, it outlines the memory addresses for one of the PIAs and the function of each bit. And if we zoom in on address FF23, it shows that bit 3 of this byte is the 6-bit sound enable. So we know that we will have to set this bit, set bit 3 of this byte to a 1 according to the table that we looked at earlier. So let's look on the CoCo to see what byte is actually stored at address FF23 when we power it on, what is set to by default for BASIC. So the default value at address FF23 is 55. In hex, that's 37. In binary, that's 0011, 0111. And the sound enable bit is bit 3. And as you can see in the documentation, the bits start at 0. So we can see that bit 3 is set to 0, but we need it to be a 1 to enable the sound output. So it's set to 0 now, which is disabled, and we want to set that to a 1. So since that bit represents an 8, we can simply add 8 to set this bit. So 55 plus 8 is 63, or in hex that's 3F. In BASIC, you write a value to any address using the poke command. So the command to set this to a 1, after we set it here, shown just set to 63, we would poke AND H FF23, that's the address, comma, and the value we want, 63. Next, we need to set the bits for the select 1 and select 2 lines to select cartridge pin 35 as the sound source. On page 6 of the technical reference manual, there's more memory addresses for a different PIA. The FF0 address shows that bit 3 of that byte is the select 1, shows us the LSB of the 2 analog mux select lines. And FF03 shows that bit 3 of that byte is the select 2 mux select line. So let's take a look at the default value for this byte in extended color BASIC. So the default value at FF01 is 180, or hex B4. In binary, that's 10110100. So by default, bit 3 is already set to 0. And according to the second sound selection table, that is the value that we want. So we don't have to do anything to address FF01. Let's take a look at the default value for address FF03. The default value from BASIC is 53, or hex 35. In binary, that's 00110101. So bit 3 is set to 0. But according to our table, in the sound selection table, we need this to be set to 1. So again, since bit 3 represents 8, we simply add 8 to 53 to get 61, or hex 3D. That you can see that our binary value, if we set this byte to 61, that bit 3 would be set to a 1. So from BASIC, we can accomplish this with a poke. Poke and HFF03 with the value of 61. So to summarize, each of these 3 control lines are controlled by setting bit 3 at addresses FF01, FF03, and FF23. So if the Game Master cart was plugged in and you issued the pokes described here for these locations, you would be hearing tones coming out of the Game Master cart. And that's it for this video. I'll describe controlling the sound channels on the SN76489 chip in the future video. Thanks.